I wish we had long time, but we don't. Before we jump into Isaiah 36, I want to give you guys a little background just to remind you where we are. Year is 701 before Jesus' birth, before Christ. The northern kingdom of Israel, because of their ungodliness, has been attacked and devoured by Assyria. Assyrian Empire at the time was the superpower of the day, and they were growing, and they were ruthless, merciless. They were awful people. Like we talked about a few weeks ago, people that knew that they were going to be captured killed themselves rather than to be captured by them because of all the awful ways they were treated. Hezekiah, the king of Judah at this point, has been dealing with Assyria for the last couple of years now. Syria approached Assyria, and first, do you remember we talked about the 30 talents of gold and the 300 talents of silver, and then it was increased to 800 talents. They had to strip the gold off of even the temple, the doors and the utensils and such, just to melt it and give it to the Assyrian king. They did that just to appease him a little bit, but that wasn't enough. He wanted more, and he wanted it continuously. It just wasn't possible. So he kept on threatening them. And as you might remember, Judah wanted to make a deal with a declining superpower of the day, which was Egypt. And that's when God sent Isaiah and said, stop it. You're trusting Egypt rather than me? You're going to Egypt rather than coming to me? He had warned them, do you remember? But do you also remember, after Isaiah's prophecy, they didn't listen to him, and they did go to Egypt, and because of that, Judah lost 46 fortified cities. Along with all that money and all those lives, now they're in the same spot they had started 2 years ago, minus all that. And here is Assyria knocking on the door again. Like a bad dream that doesn't go away. A bad dream that you cannot wake up from. It's always there. Now, in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, Sennacherib, that was the name of the king of Assyria, came up against all the fortified cities of Judah and seized them. Do you know the concept of putting siege works around the city? In the old days, contrary to the movies you might see, when they were going to these kingdoms were going to war, when they were going to attack a fortified city, they wouldn't go thousands of soldiers climbing on the ladders, and they didn't do that. You know what they did? They had a lot of time. They built siege works around the city, and they just camped there, sometimes months, years. It's been recorded that it's been as long as 10 years. The concept is this: cut every communication and everything that's coming into the city and going out of the city. What comes into the city? Water, food, trade. They cut all that. So what happens is people that are stuck inside the city, like a cage, they starve to death or they die of thirst. And before doing that, there's been reports of cannibalism and people eating other people, people eating their own children and that kind of stuff. It's awful. So that was the plan, and it worked, and they did it. Assyria's coming to lay siege on Jerusalem, the only thing that's left right now, part of Judah. And the king of Assyria sent This Rabshakeh is not his name. Rabshakeh is his office, like kind of like, you might say the president sent the vice president, kind of like that. Rabshakeh is his office. He sent his Rabshakeh, his vice president, to Lachish, to Jerusalem, to King Hezekiah with a large army, and stood by the conduit of the upper pool highway of the fuller's field. That was the main source of water that was coming into the city. So this guy very arrogantly goes with a huge army and says, hey, I'm controlling your water. What are you going to do about it? And then he starts talking to them. Say now to Hezekiah, because Hezekiah sent some people to talk to him, thus says the great king of Assyria, what is this confidence you have? He's like, well, how come you haven't surrendered yet? Like, I've taken all these other things. I say, your counsel and strength for the war are only empty words. Now on whom do you rely? And you have rebelled against me. Behold, you rely on the staff of this crushed reed, even on Egypt, on which if a man leans, it will go into his hand and pierce it. So is Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, all who rely on him. He's saying, you're trusting Egypt? Come on, they're as good as dead. We defeated them so many times before. What are you relying on? And then he goes, but if you say to me, we trust in the Lord our God, you see what he's doing? This is psychological warfare. It has begun. Here he shows up with the big army. He's saying, I'm going to control your water supply. He has already taken all the fortified cities. He's taken all of Israel and other kingdoms around. He knows they're afraid, and they have every right to. Pragmatically thinking, they don't have a chance. And one by one, the vice president, let's call Rabshakeh, right, is taking down every argument they might have that they would trust in. First, he says, you're trusting Egypt? They're as good as dead. And you're trusting your God? Let's see what he's going to say. Is it not he whose high places and whose altars Hezekiah has taken away and has said to Judah to worship in Jerusalem? Now therefore come and make a bargain with my master, the king of Assyria, and I will give you 2,000 horses if you're able to put riders on them. Now here they had some information, but they didn't really have all the information. Now Hezekiah had taken down the altars and the high places of the idols. But the Assyrian king did not know that that wasn't God that they were worshiping. They were idols. In other words, Hezekiah did the right thing, not the wrong thing. But because it was limited in scope, they're misapplying what little they know. And then he's taunting them, hey, I'll give you 2,000 horses if you can put riders on them. Just, you know how you say when you're a kid, I can beat you with one hand tied behind my back, kind of like that, taunting him, you know. And then as he's speaking these things and he's saying, like, the Lord sent me, this Lord that you trust, he told me to come here and defeat you and this and that. And then Hezekiah's people say to Rabshakeh, speak now to your servants in Aramaic. Like he says, speak to us in your language. Don't let these people hear you speak in their language, because Hezekiah's people don't want the people that are in the city to understand what this guy is saying, because they're going to be scared if they hear these words, rightfully so. But Rabshakeh said, as my master sent me only to your master and to speak to these words, and not to the men who sit on the wall, doomed to eat their own dung and drink their own urine with you, is scaring them. Saying, shouldn't these people know what's about to happen to them? They're going to die of hunger. Thus says the king, he keeps talking, do not let Hezekiah deceive you, for he will not be able to deliver you. Nor let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord, saying that the Lord will surely deliver us. This city will not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Do not listen to Hezekiah, for thus says the king of Assyria, make your peace with me and come out to me, and each of you will have his vine, and each of you his fig tree, and drink from each its own waters and its own cisterns, until I come and take you away to a land that's much like your land, a land of grain and new wine, and land of bread and vineyards. It sounds beautiful, doesn't it? What he's saying is, don't listen to your king Hezekiah. If he says trust in the Lord, don't trust in the Lord. And later on, he's going to say, did the Lord save this kingdom and the other kingdom and the other kingdom from our hands? He's saying, we are the superpowers. We're going to destroy. It doesn't matter who says what. And then he tries to convince the people that are listening to him. He says, look, come out and surrender. We will let you stay here. This will still be your place. And later, at some point, we will come, take you away to this beautiful land and give you land over there and gardens and fig trees and prosperity. He's promising them the world. But what he's talking about is displacement. Now, what they did in those days was they would take people from their land and displace them into a foreign land. And this is something that most of you are aware of. You guys are familiar with the situation between Armenia and Azerbaijan, right? It's exactly what it is. Soviet Union took a part of Armenia, a bunch of Armenian people put it in Azerbaijan, Azerbaijani people put it in Armenia. What's the point? It's the same thing that the Assyrian king did, and kings of other nations did, and Soviet Union did, so that the land is weak. If you have two separate people groups, they're going to be involved with each other, and they're not going to come together and become strong and rebel against the empire. That was the idea. And look, the consequences we're still seeing. I mean, until there was a peace deal signed a few days ago in the White House. Let's see what's going to come off of that. But look, it's been thousands of years, right? So, this is what they're up against. People are afraid. They don't have the power. They don't have the army. They're as good as gone. They're facing an enemy that they are absolutely powerless against. Chapter 36, 7. Then when Hezekiah heard it, he tore his clothes and covered himself with sackcloth and entered the house of the Lord. Very important point. Tearing his clothes, sackcloth, what does that mean? Distress. That was when they heard bad news, this is what they did, right? But what's the first thing he did? Where did he go? He learned his mistake. He didn't run to Egypt to make a diplomatic treaty, did he? No. Where did he go? Key words. He entered the house of the Lord. First stop, God. Hezekiah is beginning to get it. Then he sent Eliakim, who was over the house of the Shebna, and scribe, the elders, the priests, covers themselves with sackcloth, and he sent them to Isaiah. Who's Isaiah? Not only the author of this book, but he was the prophet through which God was speaking to the group of northern and the southern kingdoms at the time. In this case, Judah. He was the prophet of God. He was the one that told them, go make a deal with Egypt. You're going to lose. And they did. So they go to him again. They say to him, Hezekiah the king sends his people with the message, and this is the message of Hezekiah to Isaiah. This day is a day of distress, rebuke, and rejection, for the children have come to birth, and there is no strength to deliver. He's saying it's an impossible situation. It's lose-lose. What are we going to do? Perhaps the Lord your God will hear the words of Rabshakeh, whom his master, the king of Assyria, has sent to reproach the living God, and will rebuke the words which the Lord your God has heard. Therefore, offer a prayer for the remnant that's left. They're hopeless. There's only Judah left, and they're as good as gone. What are we going to do? Please pray. This was the message from the king to Isaiah the prophet. Isaiah said to them, thus you shall say to your master, thus says the Lord, do not be afraid because of the words that you have heard, with which the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. You see, they blaspheme God. It was so much beyond the king Hezekiah. They blaspheme God himself. Behold, I will put a spirit in him, so that he will hear a rumor and return to his own land, and I will make him fall by the sword in his own land. And then Rabshakeh returned and found the king of Assyria fighting against Libnah, for he had heard that the king had left Lachish. So this part is a little confusing. Let me clear it up. They go to Isaiah. Isaiah says, this is what the Lord says. He's going to return back to his country, and then he's going to die. Now, between those two verses, there is 2 years. Now, in essence, exactly just like Isaiah said, after this initial encounter with Hezekiah and the king of Assyria saying, surrender, Hezekiah running to the Lord, he did actually go back to his country without attacking for 2 years. Because the Lord, just like he said, made another country attack him, so they left Judah alone and went back. Okay? And then, 2 years later, he comes back. He sends a letter. He didn't forget that this whole thing was happening, right? Thus you shall say to Hezekiah the king of Judah, do not let your God in whom you trust deceive you, saying that Jerusalem will not be given into the hands of the king of Assyria. Behold, you have heard that what the kings of Assyria have done to all these other lands, destroying them completely. So do you think you will be spared? And he just goes on listing all the kingdoms that they had destroyed, right? And in this letter, they continue to scare them, and they continue to tell them about their overwhelming power and all their other conquests. Then Hezekiah took the letter from the hand of the messengers and read it. And then, again, he went up to the house of the Lord and spread it before the Lord. Now here is the scary letter. Comes 2 years later to Hezekiah from king of Assyria, saying that he's about to attack. Again, first thing, he goes to the Lord, and he takes the letter, puts it before him. Look, Lord, this is what they're saying. Hezekiah now is a lot different than the Hezekiah of 5 years ago. 5 years ago, Hezekiah went to Egypt and made treaties and made plans and adjustments and all those things that he thought he had to do to defend himself. It cost him dearly. He took circumstances in his own hands. He engineered the circumstances, relied his own money, ability, wisdom, and connections. He thought this was the solution. It wasn't. Now he is different. The first thing he's doing is, rather than trying to come up with a solution to the problem, he's going and trusting the Lord. The only action he didn't defend, make treaties, call to arms. He wasn't being pragmatic. He wasn't keeping his options open. He just went to the Lord, completely trusting him. Big lesson for us. When the enemy comes tempting you with something, a perceived need or lack, what are you going to do? What am I going to do? A lot of times, I could tell you my personal experience, a lot of times when I try to do it my own way, I fail. But when I stop helping God, when I stop doing my part and totally rely on the Lord, He makes it happen. Somehow, some way, He makes it happen. That's exactly what Hezekiah learned. So he puts the letter. He says, Lord, this is what this guy is saying. Listen to his prayer. Hezekiah prayed to the Lord. O Lord of hosts, God of Israel, who is enthroned above the cherubim, you are God, you alone. All the kingdoms of the earth, you have made heaven and earth. Incline your ear, O Lord, and hear, open your eyes, O Lord, and see. And listen to all the words of Sennacherib, who sent them to reproach the living God. Truly, O Lord, the king of all Assyria, have devastated all the countries and their lands, and have cast their gods into the fire, for they were not gods, but the works of man's hand, wood and stone, and he had destroyed them. Now, O Lord, our God, deliver us from the hand, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you alone are God. This was the prayer. He didn't take any steps. He didn't go join this group and the other. He didn't make things happen. He didn't put himself in the right situation or the circumstance. He just went to the Lord and asked Him for help. Asked Him to intervene. And then Isaiah, our time is gone, so I'm going to cut this part short. And Isaiah tells him to say this to the Assyrians, and God rebukes the Assyrians and says, basically, who do you think you are? Just because you're successful and you're growing as an empire, you think you did all this? He said, I allowed you to be victorious and grow as an empire. You think you're doing all this? He says, it's me that's doing it. Therefore, at the end, thus says the Lord concerning the king of Assyria, he will not come into the city or shoot an arrow there, and he will not come before it with a shield or throw up siege ramps against it. By the way that he came, by the same way he will return, and he will not come to this city, declares the Lord. For I will defend this city to save it for my own sake and for the sake of my servant David. Now, it's unfathomable for an Assyrian army to come to 30 miles off of Jerusalem and not to shoot an arrow or come near it, to even pull a sword or near it with a shield. It's not even thinkable for them not to try to take the city. But that's exactly how it happened. Do you want to know how God did it? No soldiers were killed. There was not a single shot fired, so to speak. Then the angel of the Lord went out and struck 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians. And when the man arose in the morning, behold, they were all dead. One night, one angel, 185,000 people dead. You think they were terrorized when they woke up in the morning, the Assyrian army? Do you remember what they were trying to do to Hezekiah and to the people that were in the city? They were trying to terrorize them and scare them into obeying and surrendering. God did the same thing to them, only worse. They woke up in the morning, I would say probably 90% of the army was dead. Can you imagine? Going to sleep, a few hours later, you have 90% of the army, 185,000 killed. How did the Lord do it? I don't know. But if one angel can kill 185,000 in one night, when Jesus said on the night of his arrest, when Peter tried to defend him, with his sword, attacked the guard of the Roman guard, Jesus said, "What are you doing? Put your sword in its sheath." He said, "Don't you think I could call right now where 12 legions of angels could come down to defend me?" Now, 12 legions is about 12,000. I might be wrong. It might be more. But if one angel can kill 185,000, what do you think a 12,000 angel army could do? Besides the point. But did you see how the Lord came through? And it's not done. Remember that prophecy Isaiah had made 2 years ago? So Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, departed and returned home to Nineveh. No fight, no arrow, no shield, did not even approach the wall. Went right back, just like God said. It came about that he was worshiping in the house of Nisroch, his god, and Adramelech and Sharezer, his sons, killed him with the sword. Remember, Isaiah said he's going to go and he's going to be killed by the sword? And he was. Not only he left, and he was killed just like God said. This you might find interesting. And they escaped into the land of Ararat. They went to Armenia to be safe over there. These two kids that killed the king of Assyria. And his other king, Esarhaddon, became king in his spot. Now, the big point here, when we are facing impossible situations, it is only human to think, to control the situation, think about all the possible outcomes, and prepare ourselves, be pragmatic, plan, and put ourselves in the right situation. Set yourself up for success, so to speak. Whatever the issue is, whatever the lack or the temptation is. But the Lord says, 1, make sure that you're walking with me. 2, come to me. Don't go to this guy and that group and this thing. Forget all that. Don't go to Egypt. Don't go to the hospital. Don't go to the bank first. Don't rely on the business or your employment or your degree or your this and that or your connections or your parents or whatever it is. Come to me first. Let him give us the direction, and then we go. If he's saying, okay, go to this doctor, go. Nothing against doctors. If he's saying, go join this group, go, do it. But make sure it comes from the Lord and not from you. That's the big lesson here. Hezekiah learned it the hard way. But all these are written, guys, for us to learn from and to apply to our lives. We are all facing decisions, we are all facing challenges, we are all facing uncertainties and anxieties about the future. But for us believers, there is only one way to deal with them. It's the one, to be sure that you're walking with the Lord, that you're born again and you're walking with Him. 2, you're going to the Lord for direction, not your own wisdom. These are very important points that we can keep learning from the pages of Scriptures. As you could see, how many times we kept on coming back to the same lesson, book after book. It's always, God is repeating Himself constantly to tell us, hey, stop. I got this. Just come to me and let me show you the way. God bless you.